The moment my face appeared on that Olympic medal, my family froze. The same family that banned me from my own father's birthday party just 3 years earlier. My name is Amber Mitchell. Growing up in suburban Connecticut, I was always too much for my family. Too loud, too ambitious, too different. Especially after my mom died and my dad remarried. They thought they knew everything about me. But what they didn't know was that while they were planning my father's 60th birthday party, the one I wasn't invited to, I was training for something that would change all our lives forever. This is the story of how I went from being the family embarrassment to having my face broadcast on national television, and the price I paid to get there. I grew up in a typical New England household where achievements were quietly celebrated and failures were never mentioned. My dad, Richard Mitchell, was a respected high school principal in our town, the kind of man everyone admired, but few really knew. My mom was the warm one, a former competitive swimmer who encouraged my love for gymnastics from the moment I could walk. She'd drive me to practice at 5 a.m., sit through every competition, and never once complained about the cost of leotards or travel meets. Champions are made when no one's watching, she'd tell me. When I was 12, she died from breast cancer, and that's when everything changed. Dad was lost without her. For a year, it was just us. Him trying to be both parents, me trying to be less trouble. I stopped competing temporarily. Our house became quiet in a way that felt suffocating. Then came Diana. She was my dad's colleague, polished, organized, and determined to bring stability back to our lives. Within 18 months, they were married, and Diana moved in with her 2 daughters, Heather and Madison, both perfectly poised and academically gifted. They were everything I wasn't. Studious, quiet, and focused on activities that didn't involve unnecessary risks, as Diana called my gymnastics. There was this one time during my freshman year of high school, I'd qualified for a regional competition, my comeback after Mom died. Dad promised he'd be there. The night before, Diana organized a surprise dinner for Hinner to meet some school board officials. "This could mean a promotion, Amber," she explained in that voice that suggested I was being selfish for even questioning it. "Surely you understand what's important." Dad apologized, but I competed with empty seats where my family should have been. I placed second. When I came home with my silver medal, Diana said, "That's nice, dear," without looking up from her planner. Heather smirked. Dad patted my shoulder, but quickly returned to discussing Madison's debate team success. The ultimate gesture that encapsulated our family dynamic happened when I was 17. My coach had noticed I had potential for higher-level competition and suggested an intensive summer training program. It would cost money that was apparently already budgeted for Heather's college visit tour and Madison's science camp. "Gymnastics is a wonderful hobby, Amber," Diana said over Sunday dinner, "but it's time to think about realistic futures." Dad just nodded along. That night, I found an envelope in my backpack. Inside was $2,000 cash and a note from my mother's sister, Aunt Caroline. "Your mother would have moved mountains for your dreams. Consider this the first mountain moved." That summer, while my family thought I was working extra shifts at the local coffee shop, I was actually training with Coach Martinez at his elite gym. He'd agreed to train me at a discount after seeing me compete. "You have something rare," he told me. Raw talent and hunger. This became my secret. Morning shifts at the coffee shop, then 8 hours of brutal training, then home to ice my injuries in private. For 3 years, I lived this double life. Diana and my stepsisters dismissed my absences as typical Amber being flighty. Dad was too busy with his career advancement to notice the calluses on my hands or the muscle definition that was transforming my body. Meanwhile, Coach Martinez was preparing me for something none of them could imagine: Olympic qualifiers. Dad's 60th birthday was going to be the social event of the season in our small Connecticut town. Diana had been planning it for months, renting out the ballroom at the Westbrook Country Club, hiring a live jazz band, and inviting practically everyone from the school district and local government. I found out about it not from my family, but from Mrs. Jenkins, my old high school English teacher, who asked if I was excited about my dad's big bash while I was serving her coffee one morning. Of course, I lied, feeling that familiar knot in my stomach. That evening, I casually mentioned to Dad that I'd heard about his birthday plans. He looked uncomfortable, glancing toward the kitchen where Diana was preparing dinner. Oh, that. Yes, Diana's put together something special. When I asked about the details, he cleared his throat. Actually, Amber, Diana thinks, we think, it might be best if you sit this one out. I stood there, stunned, as he explained in his principal voice how the event was primarily professional and how my unpredictable schedule made it difficult to include me. Diana appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. It's nothing personal, Amber. The guest list is very specific: school board members, potential donors for Richard's new education initiative. You'd be bored, honestly. But I knew the truth when Madison whispered to Heather later that night, not realizing I was around the corner. Mom said Amber would embarrass Dad in front of his colleagues. Remember last Christmas when she argued with the superintendent about sports funding? What they didn't know was that the real reason I couldn't commit to the party date wasn't my flakiness. It was because it conflicted with the Olympic qualifier trials in Colorado. The trials I had secretly been training for with Coach Martinez for 3 years. The trials that could change everything. The week before Dad's birthday, tensions escalated. Diana was stressed about party preparations, snapping at everyone. During a rare family dinner, she was reviewing the seating chart while I quietly ate my precisely measured protein and vegetables. Amber, she said suddenly, I hope you understand why we've made this decision. Your father has worked his entire career for this level of respect. Everyone attending is someone who contributes to his professional success. The implication was clear. I didn't contribute anything valuable to my father's life. I looked at Dad, waiting for him to defend me. He adjusted his glasses and said, Diana's put a lot of thought into this, sweetheart. Maybe next time. That night, Heather came to my room, a rare occurrence. Don't take it personally, she said, not unkindly. Mom just wants everything perfect. You know how you can be unpredictable. When I didn't respond, she added, Anyway, it's not like you have a dress nice enough for this kind of event. She gestured to my closet full of athletic wear and jeans. The final straw came 3 days before I was set to leave for Colorado. Dad knocked on my door, looking nervous. Amber, Diana mentioned you might be planning to stop by the party anyway. I need your word that you'll respect our wishes on this. My own father was preemptively banning me, assuming I would crash his party like some rebellious teenager. Actually, Dad, I said calmly, I'll be out of town that weekend. His relief was palpable and heartbreaking. He didn't even ask where I was going. That same night, Coach Martinez called with news that changed everything. A scout from the Olympic Committee had specifically requested to see me compete in Colorado. They've heard about you, Amber. This isn't just about qualifying anymore. This could be your shot at the actual team. As I packed my competition leotards, the contrast couldn't have been clearer. While Diana was arranging flowers and champagne glasses for the people who mattered in Dad's life, I was preparing for the moment that might define mine. The invitation to the Olympic trials felt like vindication. Someone saw value in me, even if my own family didn't. The morning I left for Colorado, no one was home to say goodbye. Diana and the girls were at the country club finalizing arrangements. Dad was at a pre-birthday breakfast with colleagues. I left a note on the kitchen counter. Away for the weekend, good luck with the party, A. What I didn't write was that in less than 48 hours, I would be performing on a mat in front of Olympic judges, carrying not just my weight, but the weight of years of dismissal and doubt. And for the first time, I was glad my family wouldn't be there to watch. This moment would be mine alone. The Olympic qualifier in Colorado was surreal. The arena lights, the chalk dust in the air, the nervous energy of dozens of elite athletes, all of it felt more like home than my actual house ever had. Coach Martinez kept me focused. One event at a time, Amber. You've done this routine thousands of times. I was scheduled to perform my floor routine at exactly 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, right when my father would be making his birthday speech back in Connecticut. As I stood at the corner of the mat, I had a bizarre thought. While Diana was probably handing Dad a microphone, I was about to launch into the most difficult tumbling pass I'd ever attempted in competition. The music started. My body moved on autopilot, the product of years of 5 a.m. practices and hidden ice baths. Triple twist, landing, transition, leap series. I felt weightless, powerful. When I nailed my final tumbling pass, a double layout that Coach Martinez had insisted I was ready for, the crowd erupted. I had never heard applause like that before. My score flashed on the board, 15.8, the highest of the competition so far. Coach Martinez grabbed me in a bear hug, whispering, "They're watching, Amber. They're all watching." What I didn't know then was that NBC Sports had decided to broadcast parts of the qualifier live due to the exceptional talent pool that year, or that back in Connecticut at the Westbrook Country Club, someone's phone had buzzed with a sports alert about the unknown gymnastics powerhouse making waves at Olympic trials. I was sitting in the athlete area, still buzzing from my performance, when my phone exploded with notifications. Texts from high school classmates, old gym teammates, even Mrs. Jenkins from the coffee shop. "You're on TV." The most chilling message came from Aunt Caroline. Diana's face when they showed you on the big screen at the club was priceless. Call me ASAP. Apparently, someone at Dad's party, the superintendent's sports-obsessed son, had recognized my name on the broadcast and excitedly announced it to the room. The country club had a massive screen set up for ambient background sports, and suddenly there I was, in high definition, sticking the landing of my life while wearing the competitor number and Mitchell across my back. According to Aunt Caroline, who pieced together the story from friends at the party, Dad had been mid-speech when the commotion started. People began pointing at the screen, then looking at him with confusion and admiration. "Your daughter is at Olympic trials?" someone asked. Dad, completely blindsided, had stared at the screen in shock. Diana had tried to regain control, laughing it off. "Oh, Amber's little hobby. Richard, continue your speech." But the damage was done. Guests were pulling out phones, searching my name, finding the live stream. The superintendent himself had apparently said, "Mitchell, why didn't you tell us your daughter was competing at this level? This is extraordinary for the district." The party that was supposed to celebrate Dad's professional achievements had suddenly become about his gymnast daughter, the daughter who wasn't even invited. I sat in the Colorado arena, shaking, as texts continued to pour in. The most unexpected one came 3 hours later, from Madison, of all people. "Dad left the party early. Diana is furious. What have you done?" What had I done? I'd finally stopped hiding. The secret training, the sacrifices, the dreams I'd been told were unrealistic, all of it was now public knowledge. My private rebellion had become a very public statement. The next morning, still in Colorado for day 2 of trials, I finally worked up the courage to call Dad. When he answered, his voice sounded strange, quiet, almost reverent. "Amber," he said, "why didn't you tell me?" That simple question broke something in me. Years of dismissal, of being the family afterthought, of watching him choose Diana's version of success over anything I cared about. "Would you have listened?" I asked. "Would you have heard me over Diana telling you what a waste of time it was? Would you have believed in me the way Mom did?" The silence that followed was deafening. "I'm sorry," he finally said. "I'm so sorry." It wasn't enough. Not yet. I had one more day of competition ahead of me, and for the first time in years, I didn't care what my family thought. I had found my own path, my own strength. I told Dad I had to go, that Coach Martinez was waiting. "Amber," Dad said before I hung up, his voice breaking, "I'll be watching today. We all will." The day after the qualifier ended, I woke up to a reality I couldn't have imagined. My name was trending on social media. America's surprise gymnast, they called me. Sports journalists were digging into my background, wondering how someone without the typical elite gymnastics pedigree had suddenly appeared at Olympic trials. Coach Martinez was fielding calls from sponsors. And the biggest news of all, I had qualified. I was going to the Olympic team final selection camp. Meanwhile, back home, my family was in chaos. According to Aunt Caroline, who had become my eyes and ears, Dad had moved into the guest room. Diana was doing damage control, telling friends there had been a misunderstanding about my invitation to the party. Madison and Heather were fighting with each other, Madison apparently defending me while Heather sided with her mother. I returned to Connecticut a week later, not to my father's house, but to Aunt Caroline's apartment. Dad came to see me the day I arrived. He looked older somehow, sitting awkwardly on Caroline's floral couch, turning his wedding ring around his finger. "I've been watching videos of your competitions," he said, "all the ones I missed. You move just like your mother." It was the first time he'd mentioned my mother without discomfort in years. Diana had always seemed to consider references to my mom as somehow disloyal. "Coach Martinez showed me what you can do," he continued. "He told me about the scholarship offers you turned down to stay close to home, about how you've been training through injuries that would have stopped most athletes." I couldn't look at him. Mom would have known all that already. "Yes," he admitted, "she would have." The conversation that followed was painful but necessary. Dad confessed that after Mom died, he'd been terrified of losing me too, especially to a sport that involved such physical risk. It had been easier to follow Diana's lead, to pretend my gymnastics was just a phase, rather than confront his fears. He had convinced himself he was protecting me by encouraging realistic goals. "But I was wrong," he said, his voice breaking. "I was a coward, and I've missed so much." Over the next few weeks, as I prepared for selection camp, surprising changes unfolded. Dad attended every practice, sitting quietly in the gym corner, watching with wonder as I trained. He had taken a leave of absence from work, something unthinkable before. Diana, realizing the social currency of having an Olympic hopeful stepdaughter, attempted an awkward reconciliation, suddenly interested in my career. "We should discuss potential endorsements," she said during an uncomfortable dinner at Aunt Caroline's. "I have contacts in marketing who could—" "No," I interrupted firmly. "Coach Martinez and I have that handled." The most unexpected development came from Madison. One evening, she showed up alone at the gym after practice, looking out of place in her preppy clothes. "I found this in the attic," she said, handing me a dusty box. Inside were dozens of VHS tapes labeled in my mother's handwriting. "Amber, first competition. Amber, balance beam victory. Gymnastics regionals 2008. Dad asked me to help digitize them, Madison explained. Diana had them put in storage years ago. She hesitated. I never knew you were that good, even as a kid. Diana knew, I said simply. She found it threatening. Madison didn't deny it. She's moving out, she said instead, taking Heather with her. I'm staying with Dad. When selection camp finally arrived, I went with the small entourage: Dad, Aunt Caroline, Coach Martinez, and, surprisingly, Madison. Diana and Heather sent a generic "good luck" text. The pressure was intense. 2 weeks of being evaluated on every aspect of my performance, competing against gymnasts who had been on the elite track since childhood. On the final day, when the team was announced and my name was called, Dad sobbed openly. Photos of that moment, me in shocked disbelief, Dad with tears streaming down his face, Coach Martinez pumping his fist in the air, made national news. The Cinderella story of American gymnastics, the headlines declared. 3 months later, I stood on the Olympic floor in front of millions of viewers worldwide. As I chalked my hands, I spotted Dad, Aunt Caroline, and Madison in the family section. Even more surprisingly, 2 rows behind them sat Diana and Heather, looking uncomfortable but present. My floor routine was the culmination of everything: the grief of losing my mother, the years of feeling invisible in my own family, the secret training sessions, the relentless determination to prove that my dreams weren't just a hobby. When I landed my final pass, the arena erupted. The medal ceremony feels like a dream in my memory. The weight of the medal around my neck, the national anthem, the cameras. But the clearest moment came afterward, when I finally reached my family in the stands. Dad enveloped me in a hug that felt like an apology, a celebration, and a promise all at once. She would have been so proud, he whispered. I know, I said. And for the first time, I truly believed it. Later that night, back at the Olympic Village, I received a text from Diana. Congratulations. I was wrong about you. I'm sorry it took this for me to see that. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning. The months following the Olympics brought opportunities I'd never imagined: sponsorships, speaking engagements, a chance to train with the best coaches in the country. But the most significant change was at home. Dad sold the house in Connecticut. Too many difficult memories, he said, and moved closer to my new training facility. He and Diana finalized their divorce quietly. Madison enrolled in a college nearby and often came to watch me train, fascinated by a world so different from the one she'd been raised to value. The most meaningful moment came on what would have been my mother's birthday. Dad and I visited her grave together, something we hadn't done as a family since before Diana. We placed her favorite flowers and propped my medal against the headstone. She knew, Dad said softly. Even when you were tiny, she knew you had something special. That night, he gave me a package, my mother's journals. In them, I found detailed notes about my earliest gymnastics classes, her observations about my natural abilities, her dreams for my future. The final entry, written just weeks before she died, read, "Amber flew today, truly flew. The coaches couldn't believe the height on her dismount. Whatever happens to me, Richard must promise to keep her flying." He hadn't kept that promise. Not for a long time. But now, watching me continue my career with new goals and opportunities, he was trying to make up for lost time. As for Diana, we maintain a cordial distance. Heather rarely communicates, but Madison has become an unexpected ally and friend. Aunt Caroline remains my rock, the keeper of my mother's memory, the one who never doubted. And Coach Martinez? He's now training a new generation of gymnasts, using my story to inspire kids whose families don't understand their passion. Sometimes, he tells them, you have to believe in yourself first. The world catches up eventually. Today, 3 years after standing on that Olympic podium, I still train, compete, and chase new dreams. The medal hangs not in a trophy case, but in the small gym I opened in my hometown, a place where kids like me can find their strength without judgment. My father volunteers there most weekends, spotting young gymnasts with the careful attention he once reserved for school board meetings. Life isn't perfect. Relationships damaged by years of dismissal don't heal overnight. But every time a young girl tells me her family doesn't understand her passion, I share my story. Not the glossy media version, but the real one. About hiding who you are, about the pain of not being seen, and about the courage to pursue your path anyway. If you're watching this and feeling unseen in your own family, remember, your dreams don't require anyone else's validation to be worthy. The people who should support you might be the last to understand your vision, and that's okay. Find your Coach Martinez, your Aunt Caroline, the believers who see your potential before the rest of the world catches up. Sometimes the hardest tumbling pass isn't on the mat. It's navigating the expectations of those who claim to know what's best for you. But trust me when I say this, landing on your own terms is worth every moment of the journey. So, what's your Olympic dream? What passion are you hiding? Share your story in the comments below. And remember to subscribe for more real conversations about family, resilience, and finding your own path to victory.